The rain tapped softly on the glass dome of the alien station, far above a red planet called Nathara, inside the main hall. Laughter filled the air. A group of young alien cadets sat around a glowing table, sharing stories, teasing each other, and daring one another to do silly things. Among them was Virel, an alien girl with silver blue skin and glowing eyes. She was beautiful, proud, and always full of confidence. She came from a noble family, trained to be a leader. Her voice carried weight. And when she spoke, others listened. But today, something unusual happened. A human boy named Jack had joined the station as a translator. He was quiet, not very strong, and didn't look special. The aliens didn't pay much attention to him until he sat near Virel. He didn't speak much, just smiled, listened, and watched everything closely. That made Virel curious. She leaned in with a smirk and said loud enough for the others to hear, "Hey, human, guess my real name, and I'll marry you." The room exploded with laughter. Even Jack laughed, though his cheeks turned red. It was clearly a joke. Just something said to make the group laugh. No one took it seriously, not even Virel, who leaned back and waved her hand as if saying, "Forget it." But Jack didn't forget that night. While the others went to sleep or explored the entertainment wing, Jack stayed in the station's library. He typed in alien language codes and searched their culture files. He learned that Virel's full name was Vireleneth Shora, but that was just a public name. The real name, her soul name, was always hidden, sacred. Never shared, it was a name only revealed in deep trust or bonding rituals. Like ancient marriage ceremonies, Jack sat back and thought. She probably doesn't even remember she said that. Still, something about the challenge stayed in his mind. Not because of the joke or the marriage part, but because he liked puzzles. And this one felt different. Over the next few days, he kept reading, digging into old alien records, poems, stories, and songs. He noticed patterns in the way names changed based on family lines, regions, and roles. It was like a puzzle made of whispers, secrets, and symbols. Meanwhile, Virel kept teasing him whenever they crossed paths, still thinking about my name, human, she'd say with a grin. He'd just smile and nod, never giving anything away. One day, during a team training session, Jack helped Virel fix her targeting system when it froze during battle sim. She looked at him, surprised. "You understand our tech?" she asked. "A little," Jack replied with a shrug. "I read a lot after that." Her teasing became lighter, more playful. Her friends still thought the joke was silly. But a few began to notice the way she looked at Jack when he wasn't watching. But she didn't know he was getting closer to the truth. One night, Jack found an old document in a forgotten part of the archive. It was damaged, with half the text missing. But it mentioned a name once given to a royal child of the Shora bloodline. A name never spoken in public since the Great Silence. The name was Ilaria Nay. Jack whispered it under his breath. And for a second, the lights flickered. He looked around, wondering if he imagined it. Then he laughed to himself. "I'm going crazy," he said. But the next morning, Virel passed him in the corridor and stopped suddenly. She narrowed her eyes. "Were you in the old archive wing last night?" she asked. Jack blinked. "Yeah. Why?" "No reason," she said quickly, then walked away faster than usual. She didn't tell anyone, but her heart beat faster. That wing was sealed for a reason. It held ancient records, some too powerful or dangerous to be read by outsiders. For the first time, she wondered, what if he really finds it? What happens then? She laughed to herself, shaking her head. "It was just a joke," she whispered. "He won't actually guess it." But her hands felt colder than usual. Back in his room, Jack stared at his notes, piecing together what he believed could be. Her name, he wasn't sure. And maybe it was just a shot in the dark. But a voice inside him whispered, "Say it to her, and you'll find out who she really is." And maybe, just maybe, she'd realize who he really was too. Asterix Varel stood near the high crystal window of the observation deck, watching the twin moons of Nathara rise slowly. Her hands were behind her back, fingers nervously tapping against each other. She told herself it was nothing, just a strange feeling. But deep down, something had shifted inside her. She remembered the way Jack had looked at her yesterday, calm, focused, not like the awkward boy who had first arrived. His eyes had changed, and that made her nervous. Could he really be searching for it? She whispered to herself, no human should ever try. In her culture, the real name was sacred. It was not just a word, it was tied to the soul, the past lives, the family's legacy. Speaking it without permission was dangerous, and for someone outside their kind to even know it. That was unheard of back in the station's research chamber. Jack leaned over his tablet, scrolling through a translation of an ancient war poem. His face was tired, his eyes red from long nights. He had a list, now 5 possible names, each with roots in noble houses of Shora blood, but one stood out: Lalariane. The poem said it was the name of the unbroken light, given to a child who would unite her people during times of great trial. Jack didn't believe in prophecy, but the name felt right. It had the rhythm, the meaning, and matched Virel's aura. He didn't tell anyone, not even the AI assistant. This had to be done face to face when the moment was real. Meanwhile, rumors began to spread among the alien cadets. Some noticed Jack spending more time in old wings of the library. Others joked that the human had fallen in love with Virel. A few warned him in private. "You're walking a dangerous line, human," said one older warrior. "Her true name is not a game." Jack just nodded. "It's not a game to me either." But Virel could no longer pretend it was all just fun. That evening, she visited the Temple of Memory inside the station, where holograms of the ancestors floated in silent meditation. She kneeled before the shrine of her great-grandmother, a powerful leader who once enforced the soul name laws with fire and steel. "Forgive me," Virel whispered. "I didn't mean to say it like that. It was just a joke." But in her heart, she knew the moment she spoke those words to Jack, something ancient had stirred. The ritual law of name-binding had been passed down for generations. If a person from outside could speak the name of a Shora noble without help, the stars would consider it fate, not chance, and now that possibility hung over her like a storm cloud. The next day, the training hall buzzed with energy. The cadets were preparing for a multi-species combat simulation. Virel and Jack were on the same team, something she hadn't planned. As they stood in the prep room, Jack walked up beside her. "Virel," he said gently, "I've been thinking about your offer." She raised an eyebrow. "The one about guessing my real name?" "Yes," he nodded. "I think I have it." Her breath caught. "Jack, you don't know what you're doing." "I know more than you think," he said, his voice steady. "But I'll only say it if you let me." That made her pause. Something inside her trembled, not in fear, but in something deeper, older. She looked at him and saw not just the quiet human boy, but someone who had listened, learned, and respected the ways of her people more than some of her own kind. "If you're wrong," she said slowly, "there will be nothing. If you're right, you might trigger something that cannot be undone." Jack didn't blink. "I accept that." The lights dimmed as the simulation began. The team ran through the metal corridors of the training dome, fighting holographic enemies and moving as one unit. Jack and Virel fought back to back, covering each other without a word. Their movements matched, as if they had trained together for years. Finally, when the mission ended and the fake battlefield turned dark, the two found themselves alone in the hall, the others walking ahead, now or never. Jack took a deep breath and whispered, "Illyrian Eye." The word echoed softly through the corridor like a bell underwater. Virel froze. Her eyes went wide. Her breath left her body in a gasp. and a strange glow lit her chest, spreading up her neck like blooming light. A hum filled the air, low and powerful. The wall behind her shimmered with old symbols of her ancestors, glowing in gold and silver. "You," she whispered. "You said it. I wasn't sure." Jack admitted, but it felt right. Virel stepped back, confused, afraid, and amazed all at once. "That name hasn't been spoken in 700 years, she said. "Not even I knew it for certain until now." Suddenly, a sharp tone rang out from her wrist device. A message from the High Council blinked on the screen. "Unauthorized name. Binding detected. Summoned to temple immediately." Vera looked at Jack. "You've just awakened something older than both of us, Jack." He nodded. "Then let's face it together." The hall fell silent after Jack spoke her name. Not a word, not a sound. Even the soft hum of the corridor lights faded away as if the world itself held its breath. Virel stared at Jack, her chest rising and falling quickly, the glowing mark on her collarbone now pulsing like a heartbeat. Then it happened. A wave of energy spread from her body, soft and golden. Symbols formed in the air around her ancient language, alive and swirling like smoke. It wrapped around Jack, too, touching his skin, marking him briefly with light before fading. "What have you done?" Virel whispered, her voice trembling. Jack didn't speak. He couldn't. Something inside him shifted, a warmth rising in his chest. Not pain, but connection, like a door had opened between them. Virel staggered back, her knees weak. She pressed a hand to her chest. "The name bond," she said. "It's real now." Active footsteps echoed down the hall. A group of elders in long ceremonial robes rushed in. Summoned by the alert sent from Virel's wrist device, their eyes were wide with disbelief as they looked at the two standing in a circle of faint light who spoke the soul name. The lead elder demanded. "I did," Jack said quietly. They didn't believe it at first. One elder scanned the energy still hanging in the air and shook his head. "It's true. The bond is forming, fully unforced, fully valid." Virel looked at Jack, not with anger, but with fear. "I thought it was just a joke," she said under her breath. "I didn't think you'd ever come close." One elder stepped forward, eyes narrowed. "Human, do you understand what this means?" Jack nodded. "I've read your histories," he said. "I know a name bond creates a path between two souls. It binds destinies." The elder turned to Virel. "And did you invite this bond?" She looked down. "I made a joke," she admitted. "I said, if he guessed my true name, I'd marry him." The room grew colder. One of the elders let out a breath like a sigh of thunder. Then the name bond was called by ritual word, not trickery. It must be honored. Jack stepped forward. "If this causes her trouble, I'll step away," he said. "I never meant to break your rules." But the lead elder raised a hand. "Too late. The bond has answered. Now you must face the trial." Virel gasped. "What?" "No, that's for bonded pairs, not a human who stumbled into this. The trial is sacred." The elder said firmly. "You both must complete it, or face exile. It cannot be undone now, later." In a quiet meditation room, Virel sat with her. Arms wrapped around her knees, Jack sat across from her, unsure what to say. She finally broke the silence. "You should have let it go, Jack." "I couldn't," he said, honestly. "It mattered. I don't know why, but it did." She looked at him, really looked. "Do you want to be bound to me?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Not because of the joke, not because of some law, but because when I looked into your culture, your people, your stories, I started to see you, the real you." She blinked fast, then looked away. "You're either very brave or very stupid. Human, maybe." "Both," he said with a slight smile. She let out a tired laugh. "You realize the trial could break us, right? It's not a game, Jack. It forces two people to see everything: their strengths, their fears, even the parts they hide from themselves. "I'm ready," he said softly. "Are you?" She stared at him, her heart pounding. Then she gave a slow, quiet nod. Later that day, the two stood at the edge of a glowing gate inside the Temple of Echoes. The elders gathered behind them, chanting words that hadn't been spoken in centuries. The gate opened, revealing a swirling portal of light and shadow. Jack reached out his hand. "Let's go." Virel looked at it for a moment, then took it. As they stepped through together, the symbols of their names circled them once more, glowing brighter than before, and somewhere, deep in the ancient corners of the galaxy, a long-sleeping power stirred once again. Because when a human speaks a soul name with truth and an alien noble answers with heart, fate begins to move. And Virel, once so sure she'd never truly believe in such things, now wondered, what if he was always meant to find me? The light of the portal faded behind them, and silence filled the air like thick fog. Jack and Virel stood in a wide, glowing chamber that looked both real and unreal. The ground beneath their feet pulsed gently, like it was alive. The walls shifted, showing blurry memories, some Virel's, some Jack's. This was the trial space created thousands of years ago by the ancient name binders. It wasn't just a test of strength. It was a test of soul. Jack looked around in wonder. "Where are we?" "We're inside the temple's memory," Virel answered quietly. "Everything we feel, fear, or try to hide, this place will show it." Suddenly, the chamber rumbled and shifted. A new path opened ahead, glowing blue. A deep voice echoed from above, not from a speaker, but from the space itself. "To complete the bond, truth must be revealed. Scars must be shared, and trust must be earned." Jack swallowed hard. Virel didn't speak. She just walked forward, shoulders tight, face serious. They entered the first trial, the Mirror of Pain. Before them stood two glowing mirrors. When they looked in, they didn't see their reflections. They saw moments from their past things they tried to forget. Jack saw his younger self being ignored, mocked for being weak. He saw the moment he was told he wasn't good enough to join Earth's main fleet, that he was just a translator, not important. Virel saw herself training with her father, her knees bloody, tears in her eyes as he yelled, "You're a Shora noble. You must never show weakness." She looked away, ashamed. Jack stepped closer. "You're not weak, Virel," he said softly. "You've never been." She turned to him, eyes shining. "You don't know how much I wanted to be Sinjus once, not as perfect, not as noble, just as me." The mirrors faded, and a new path opened. They had passed the first trial not by fighting, but by facing the pain they carried alone. The next room was colder, darker. Flames danced along the walls, and a new voice echoed, "To be bonded. Your fears must not control you. Speak them, or be trapped by them." Virel hesitated. She clenched her fists. "I fear becoming useless," she admitted. "If I'm not strong, if I'm not noble enough, my people won't follow me." Jack closed his eyes. "I fear being invisible," he said. "That no matter how much I learn or give, I'll always be someone others forget." The flames rose, then vanished. A soft light surrounded them and healed a little bit of what they had just shared. In the final room, they stood side by side, facing a single golden archway. A floating crystal hovered before it, glowing brightly. "The final step," the temple voice said. "You must each speak the other's heart." Jack looked into Virel's eyes. "You act proud, but deep down, you just want someone to understand the real you. Someone who sees more than your title. You carry the weight of many, and all you want is a reason to be free from it." Even for a moment, Virel looked at him, tears welling up. Then she spoke, voice shaking. "You smile when others look down on you, but inside you burn with hope. You want to be seen, not because of power or medals, but because your voice matters. You want a place where you don't have to prove you're worth every second. The crystal pulsed bright, then slowly floated down and pressed gently into both their chests. It sank in and disappeared, leaving behind a warm, golden glow. They were marked, now not by force, but by choice. The golden arch opened, and a gentle wind brushed past them. They stepped through, hand in hand. Back in the physical world, the elders waited in silence as the portal flared. Jack and Virel stepped out, changed, their auras glowing faintly with the mark of the completed bond. The crowd of cadets, officers, and leaders stared in shock and awe. Many had doubted, many had mocked, but none could speak now. One of the high elders stepped forward. "The trial is complete," he said. "The bond is true." Virel looked at Jack, her voice clear and strong. "I didn't think this would happen. I didn't want it to happen." Jack lowered his head, ready to accept her rejection. But she continued, "I've seen your heart now, and you've seen mine. I won't run from it." She turned to the elders. "I accept the bond." The hall erupted not in chaos, but in shock and silence. This was history. A human and a noble alien girl, joined by the oldest law of the stars. And somewhere deep inside her, Virel knew this wasn't a joke anymore. A cold wind brushed over the green cliffs of Cerulean, a sacred moon covered in thick forests and glowing rivers. This was where the true bond would be tested not by words, but by life itself. Virel and Jack stood at the edge of the landing pad, a single bag each on their backs, watching as their transport lifted off and disappeared into the clouds. "This is the trial of survival," Virel said, her voice quiet. "Name-bound pairs are left alone here for 7 days. No help. No tools, just each other." Jack nodded slowly, looking out into the wild landscape. "Sounds like camping." She gave him a sideways glance. The last pair who tried this didn't return as partners. He didn't ask what happened to them. The forest before them rustled, ancient and alive, glowing faintly under the three. Suns above, as they walked, roots shifted gently under their feet. Like the world was watching, hours passed in silence. They moved carefully, building a shelter near a riverbank. Jack gathered branches while Virel carved them with a sharp stone she found. For a noble girl who once wore silk armor, she worked with quiet skill. "You've done this before," Jack said, watching her. "Start a small fire with dry leaves and sparks." "I trained on wild planets during noble trials," she replied. "But this feels different, because I'm here." He asked. She didn't answer right away, just looked at the flames. "Yes," she finally said. "You changed the way I think about everything." That night, the air grew cold. Jack offered her his only blanket. She refused at first, but shivered. Anyway, finally, she moved closer and shared it with him. They sat under the stars, their shoulders touching, not speaking much. "Why did you really search for my name?" she asked suddenly. Jack thought for a while before answering. "Because you laughed," he said, "and then you looked sad when no one noticed. I wanted to see why." Virel blinked, surprised. "I didn't think anyone saw that." "I did." He said softly, "I always see the small things." The second day brought a storm. Thunder cracked the sky, and rain fell like sharp needles. Their shelter shook, water flooding the ground. Virel cried out as part of the roof broke and hit her shoulder. Jack rushed over, pulling her out, covering her with his body as wind howled. By morning, they were soaked, tired, and cold. Virel's arm was bruised. She winced as Jack wrapped it in cloth torn from his shirt. "You should have let me take the hit," she said. "You think I'd stand by and let you get hurt?" He replied. She looked at him, the warmth in her chest fighting the pain. "You're not like anyone I've ever met." "Good," he smiled. "I wouldn't want to be." The third day tested their trust. They needed food, but the only safe. Source was across a narrow log bridge above a deep ravine. Virel moved first, graceful and steady, but halfway across, she froze. Her body trembled, eyes wide. "I can't move," she whispered. Jack didn't hesitate. He stepped onto the log. Inching forward, "It's okay. Just look at me. Not down, but what if I fall?" She asked, her voice shaking. "Then we fall together," he said, holding out his hand. She reached for it, her fingers slipping once, but he grabbed her wrist tightly and pulled her forward. Together, they made it across, breathing hard, but alive that night as they ate roasted roots by the fire. Virel looked into his eyes. "You really meant that, didn't you?" "That we'd fall together?" Jack nodded. "I meant every word." The fourth day brought silence, not just from them, but from the forest itself. No animals, no wind, just stillness. As they walked deeper into the trees, the light grew dim, and the path vanished. "We're lost," Virel whispered. "Maybe the trial wants us to be," Jack said, "to see how we act when there's no way out." They stopped walking and sat under a glowing tree. Jack pulled out a piece of old cloth, something he kept in his pocket since Earth. It had his grandmother's name on it, worn and faded. "She was the only one who believed I'd be more than a translator," he said. "She died before I made it off-world." Virel gently touched the cloth. "She would be proud of you." They sat in silence for a long time, holding on to that moment like it was more important than the trial. On the sixth day, the forest opened, and they saw a glowing stone gate. The end of the trial. Okay, but to reach it, they had to face one last test. A question appeared in the air above the gate, written in ancient script. "Would you choose the bond, even if it means changing your fate?" Virel stepped forward first. "Yes," she said clearly. Jack followed. "Yes." The gate opened, and warm light surrounded them. Their trial was over. But something greater had begun. They had faced storms, fear, pain, and silence, but never let go of each other. And now, the bond between them was no longer tradition. It was choice. The gate closed behind them with a soft hum. Jack and Virel stood once again under the twin suns. But they were not the same people who entered the trial of the name-bound. Their clothes were torn, their faces tired, but something inside them now glowed brighter than any light trust. A sky shuttle landed gently nearby, sent by the council. A tall elder stepped out with a quiet nod. "The forest has seen your hearts. The bond is complete." Jack looked at Virel, unsure. If she was ready for what came next, she had passed every test. But her world, her people, still held ancient expectations, and bonding with a human was something no one had done in generations. As they flew back to the Capitol Tower, Virel stared out the window. Deep in thought, Jack sat beside her, silent, not wanting to push, but after a few minutes, she turned to him and spoke. "When I was young, I thought love was weakness," she said, "something that distracted nobles from duty." Jack gave a small nod. "And now?" "Now I think it might be the only real strength," she whispered. The ship landed in front of the Grand Temple, a building of crystal and stone, where their fate would be made public. A huge crowd had gathered, leaders, citizens, warriors, all curious to see the result of the ancient ritual. Inside, the elders stood in a circle, wearing robes that shimmered like starlight. At the center was a glowing platform, the bonding circle. The final step, Virel and Jack walked to the middle. Standing side by side, the lead elder raised a staff, and the room quieted. "Verilyneth Shora," he said, using her full, noble name. "By sacred law, you hold the right to speak the human's name and either complete the bond or end it here." The crowd held their breath. Virel turned to Jack. Her hands trembled slightly. She looked into his eyes, searching, then took a deep breath. "I know your name, Jack," she said, "but today, I choose something greater than what was given at birth." She placed her hand over his heart. You showed me courage when I was afraid. You stood beside me when the forest tested us. You believed in who I was, not what I was born to be. She leaned closer and whispered, "So I call you now, Bai. The name you earned in my heart. You are Raleigh's. The one who reaches through silence." The glowing energy of the temple surged, wrapping around them. The mark on Virel's chest responded. Glowing gold. Jack's body lit up with matching energy. Their names, old and new, floated in the air, between them connected by shimmering light. The elder stepped back, eyes wide. "The bond is sealed," he said, "by name, by trial, and by choice." The crowd erupted into whispers. Some gasped, some smiled. Some looked unsure, but none could deny what had just happened. After the ceremony, as the crowd thinned, Virel and Jack walked through the garden behind the temple, where moonflowers glowed in the dusk. "I never thought this would happen," Jack said quietly. "Neither did I," she replied. "But now, I don't want it any other way." Jack laughed softly. "You know, when you made that joke about guessing your real name, I thought you were just teasing me." "I was." She smirked. "But you turned a joke into a legend." They stopped near a small fountain, where starlight reflected off the water. Virel looked down, her face suddenly serious. "There's one last thing I want to do," she said. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a thin chain with a small stone at the end. The stone glowed faintly, holding ancient power. She placed it in Jack's hand. "This was given to me when I was born," she said. "It holds the echo of my real name." "The one you spoke?" Jack looked at it, surprised. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because now it belongs to you too," she said. "You didn't steal it, you earned it." He closed his hand around it, holding it like it was the most important thing in the universe. And maybe it was. That night, across the capital, holograms of their union lit up the skies. The people of Shora had never seen anything like Itan, alien, noble, and a human, bonded not by war, not by politics, but by truth. Some resisted it, some feared it, but many began to wonder if the old ways could change. In the days that followed, Virel and Jack became more than just a couple. They became symbols of what was possible. She continued her training, now stronger with Jack beside her, and he, once just a translator, was offered a new title, cultural bridgekeeper. For the first time in his life, Jack felt seen not for what he could do, but for who he was. And when Virel stood on the high balcony, watching the stars with his hand in hers, she knew one thing for certain. She had never meant to fall in love with a human. But now that she had, she would never want anything else. The sky over the Shora capital was filled with light. Drones floated in quiet formation, displaying bright patterns of stars, names, and glowing symbols. Across every screen, every tower, and every public hall, one message echoed: bond confirmed. Virelineth Shora and Jack Raleigh's. The news spread across the galaxy, stirring conversations from high council chambers to distant mining colonies. Many had laughed at the idea of a human forming a sacred name bond with a noble alien girl. But now, no one was laughing. In the center of it all, Virel stood quietly on her family's sky balcony, wearing her ceremonial armor, her hair shimmered in the early light, but her face held a calm, strong expression. 1 year had passed since the trial, since Jack had spoken her name and changed everything. Behind her, Jack stepped out, wearing a formal robe marked with silver threads, the symbol of the name bound glowing just above his heart. "You look serious this morning," he said, walking up beside her. "I'm thinking," she replied softly, "about how it all began. About the day I made a joke I never meant to come true." Jack smiled. "And now?" She glanced at him, her voice lighter. "Now I'm glad you took it seriously." They both turned toward the sound of footsteps. An elder approached with a digital scroll. The council awaits your final choice. Lady Virel nodded. And they already know my answer. The ceremony was held in the Grand Assembly Hall. A massive chamber shaped like a star. Virel stood at the center, facing the crowd. Leaders of dozens of worlds seated in curved rows above her. One of the council leaders stood, voice strong, Virelaneth Shora. Will you accept the role of cultural ambassador to the United Systems with your human partner beside you? Virel looked up at the faces watching her. Then she turned her gaze to Jack, standing just outside the circle. His eyes locked on hers. I will, she said clearly. With pride, Jack stepped forward to stand beside her. The crowd erupted into respectful applause. Not everyone smiled. But no one could deny the strength in their bond. Together, they bowed before the assembly, not as symbols of different worlds, but as one voice. After the ceremony, as they walked through the crystal gardens behind the council building, Virel finally laughed a soft, joyful sound that made Jack stop in surprise. I haven't heard you laugh like that in months, he said, because today I remembered something. She replied, What's that? She looked at him with a grin. I remembered that life doesn't always go as planned. And sometimes, that's the best thing of all. Jack reached for her hand, their fingers locking with ease. You once said love was weakness, he teased, and? I was wrong, she said proudly. Love is the only strength that makes everything else matter. As they walked, small groups of young cadets pointed toward them. Whispering and smiling, some even bowed in respect. Virel looked away, a little. Shy for the first time, you've become a legend. Jack joked, You helped. She replied, then paused. Actually, you are the legend. You guessed the unguessable. He shrugged. Maybe, or maybe I just listened closer than anyone else ever did. Later that night, back in their private quarters, Virel sat by the window, writing in her digital journal. Jack brought her a warm drink and sat beside her. What are you writing? He asked. My final memory entry for the Bond archives, she said. So that others will know what happened, not just the rituals and laws, but the truth. He leaned closer to read. Her last line made him smile. He didn't win my heart. With power, he won it by seeing me when I didn't even see myself. She closed the journal and looked at him. You know, I used to make fun of humans for their strange habits. Like what? He grinned, like carrying towels everywhere. She smirked. Jack laughed. That old thing again? I still remember. She said the first time you handed me that towel when I was soaked in the rain. I thought it was silly, but you looked at me like I mattered, even then, because you did. He replied, even before you knew it. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Jack, if someone asked me today if I'd ever joke about my name again, you'd say no. He guessed. She smiled softly. I'd say, not unless I want to fall in love again. He kissed the top of her head, and outside. The stars blinked silently in the sky. Across the galaxy, her name became a symbol, not of nobility or rank, but of a choice made from the heart. A name once guarded like a secret, now shared with someone who saw her not as a warrior, not as a noble, but as a person. And so, the girl who once laughed at the idea of love never joked again, because love, as she now knew, was no joke at all.